So now we're going to talk about some of the smart header or some of the smart features that exist inside of the skin editor. So we come back over here to the skin editor and look over here in the add boxes section or the library. You'll see that I have Carta 1 column header, Carta 2 column header, Carta column reverse wrapper, Carta column wrapper, copyright date, featured image, read more, and smart widget columns. All right, these are all features that are built into Carta that allow you to change things. Well, it just allows you to customize specific sections of your site. Carta comes with the 2 column header used by default everywhere. So we're going to start talking about the 2 column header. And that 2 column header can be found here. It's the typical header. And if you open it up, you can see the name of the box here, Carta 2 column header. And I called it typical header. You know, at this point it might be useful to call it typical 2 column header. Changing this name doesn't change anything about it except, you know, what you can what you see there, typical 2 column header. Now, the very first thing to set in the 2 column header is its configuration. And by configuration, I mean its width configuration. Since this is a 2 column header, you can do 2 columns that are both equally sized, so each of them are half the width of the page. You can do 2 columns where the left half is 2/3 and the right half is 1/3. You can do the one we've got, which is 2 columns where the left half is 1/3 and the right half is 2/3. Or you can do the same things with 3/4 and 1/4, where the left is 3/4 and the right is 1/4, or the left is 1/4 and the right is 3/4. So that's the first thing to set, is what its configuration is. And based on that configuration, you're going to have, you know, sections with, let's see, that's what's going on with these right here. Right? If you chose 3/4 wide, then the area you have for content in that is 764 pixels. If you choose 2/3, it's 672, half is 501, 1 is 330, and 1/4 is 238. Okay? That's the space you have for sticking stuff inside of those columns based on the choice you make in its configuration. Then, once you've done that, you have to decide what you want in the left and the right-hand columns. So right now it's set up to show the header image in the left-hand column and the site title and tagline in the right-hand column. Now, you can choose the site title and tagline, header image, an empty container, a widget area, or a nav menu. And the empty container lets you place, you know, any number of boxes that you want into that column. Site title and tagline is exactly, of course, what you see there. The header image, when you choose the header image, what you have to do is then place the URL of the image that you want there in this section here. So we're going to do that. Actually, we're going to change this out. I'm going to come over here to the media library and select Add New. Choose a file. Let's see, tutorial graphics. And then what am I looking for? I believe I am looking for this tutorial. Yeah, let's take that image. Okay, it's 351 pixels wide. Remember I told you that, well, you have 330 pixels available. So what it's going to do is shrink that image down just a little bit to fit in that space. But that's okay with me. So we'll come over here to the header image URL, and we'll place that URL for this header image here. Now sometimes people try to take the images out of the Skin Editor Images folder and put them in here. It doesn't work that way. These are just for CSS images. This needs to be a standard HTML image. So upload it to your media library and then paste the URL to it there. If you hit save and save the template, and we refresh this template, and there we go. Now you've got the new menu sitting, or the new header sitting up in here, or header image, I'm sorry, sitting in here. And we could actually choose to remove that padding. I don't think we're going to do that right now. Although I guess we could, right? We could come over to this. Let's do that, actually. Come back over to our skin design and go down to the layouts section. Go to our 2-column header left column. And now we could say left padding is 0 px and right padding is 0 px. You have to actually say px here. If you just put in 0, WordPress perceives that to be false and therefore nothing, and it just doesn't change anything. So you have to say 0 px, so it recognizes that it's actually a value. And then once we do that, we've lost that extra padding that was on either side. Okay. So the 2-column header, you can put a header image in. You could instead, put a widget area in, right? And if we put the widget area in instead, we could say OK to that. Save the template. Come over and look at it. And now you can see this is a widget box called header left widget area, but there aren't any widgets in it. Add a widget here. If we come back over and look at the widgets, you're going to see we now have a header left widget area that we could put something in. And as I told you earlier, you can style the content of the header left widget area by using the design options for the header widgets. Okay. Now you can also, instead of the widget area, you could put an empty container in there and drag something in. You could put the nav menu in. I'm not going to put the nav menu in here on this side. I'm going to go back to the header image, actually, because I think that's the most appropriate choice here. But then on the right side, I'm going to come back, and instead of saying site title and tagline, I'm going to choose the nav menu. Now, when I choose the nav menu here, I get a choice of which menu to insert. And I only have 2 menus, so it's either the main menu or the test menu. I think I'm going to go ahead and insert the main menu there for the time being. And say OK to that and save the template. Refresh that template. And now that menu is sitting over here. You have the opportunity now to style this menu using the styles in the design options here. So if we come along and choose our menu and say our header menu, we could make the font size 24 pixels. Bold, and then sometimes this happens and I'm not quite sure why, but this thing pops up here out of the range. So link text color, and then we're going to choose, I don't know. There we go. Say OK to that. Save it. All right. So you can style the menu here, and actually we can also use those design options to move this thing around a bit. So let's say we want to pull that down to the middle of this. So what we do is come over to our 2-column header right column, and let's right align that menu, and then let's give ourselves 50 pixels of top padding. See what happens. Well, it didn't make the menu right aligned. Yeah, it's hard to align this kind of thing to the right often, but what we can do is we can change the padding for it. So let's see, I think it wants another 30 pixels or more of padding anyway. So let's take it to 80 pixels of top padding, and let's give it, say, 100 pixels of, well, let's give it 80 pixels of right padding, or left padding. And then we don't care about the alignment. So, you know, you can see you have the ability to kind of move stuff around then in the case you want to do something like this. And if you really wanted this menu instead up there, which I think would look awful, but you could instead say use an empty container there. Whoops, yeah, right column is the empty container. And then take your top navigation menu, or top navigation, and drop it in there. Save the template. Refresh this template, and I think this will work. Yep, there you go. So you get this menu style in that section, if that's what you want to do. Actually, I would probably remove this header menu style, though, for that. So to the extent that you want to have the full style choices in the menu that's up here inside of your header instead of down here, you can always just use an empty box and drag that entire navigation menu box up here, and then it will take its styles with it. But we're not going to do that. We're going to take that out, bring that back down, and again, you could say widget area if you wanted to. If you had an opt-in box or something like that you wanted to put there, you could use a widget area for that. But we are going to go ahead and go back to site tagline. Now, it's important to note, oh yeah, let's get rid of that top padding. Well, it's important to note that any settings that you make for this 2-column header are going to exist anytime this 2-column header is used. You could create a new 2-column header, like landing page 2-column header, and use that 2-column header in a different template and have different settings for it. But anytime this typical 2-column header is used, this setting is going to apply to it. I mean, the settings you place here will be applied to that instance of this typical two-column header. Let's see. Let's just get rid of this stuff. There we go. Okay. Now, we also have, well, actually, let me just say also that if you have a two-column header, a second two-column header that you want to use, and you want to give it a different style, then what you need to do when you do that is to change the ID. So instead of header columns, it should be, I don't know, landing header or something like that. You want to include a different ID, because otherwise every style that you use, every style applies to header columns, will apply to your second instance of the header. So if you need something different added, or if you need to style the second header, the second instance of the two-column header differently, then you need to use a different ID than the default header columns.